everyone, it's Katie, and today I have some of my favorite yoga poses and stretches to open up the hip flexors. Specifically, we'll be talking about a muscle called the iliopsoas muscle. So it attaches from our upper thighs here, comes through our hips into our torso, attaching at the lower spine and also at the diaphragm. And this is one of those muscles that gets really tight from having long days of sitting at a desk or sitting in your car driving or just sitting around however we do. And so because it passes right through, right next to the kidneys and the adrenal glands, our adrenal glands is what releases our stress hormone cortisol. And when we do that, when we're stressed at work, when we're stressed driving, or when we're stressed from whatever it is in life, the adrenal glands secrete cortisol, the stress hormone, and our muscles are so close to that that they can absorb some of that hormone and adds to that whole tension, gunky feeling we feel right in the front of our hips. And so when the hip flexors get tight, it's kind of tightening our hips to come forward here, and that causes a lot of us to have our lower back pain. We think it's something going on here, and often it's just tightness in the front of the hips. So we'll go ahead and get started here. Starting in a kneeling position, you might want to add a blanket under your knees wherever you are. You'll be here for just a little bit. So stepping 1 foot forward, have the knee right underneath you and the knee right above the ankle here. So bring your hands to your hips and just notice what's going on here. I know for me, my front of my hip bones like to sit forward, and I kind of dump into the low back and release my belly here. What you want to do first is lift the front of the hip bones up. So get really strong in that front foot and lift up and out of that bottom knee. And see as you pull the front of your hip bones how that activates your lower belly. So as you're pulling the belly button in, your tailbone is reaching down. So you're lengthening the lower spine here and you're getting strong in your lower core. So while you're lifting up in your front of your hip bones, just notice that difference of the stretch right there. And if you don't feel it, then you can start to lean forward, keeping the front of the hip bones lifted up. And then you'll feel the stretch in the front of your hips. And since the psoas muscle attaches from the upper thigh into the low back and into the diaphragm, what I like to do to add a little bit more here is bring my hands to my thigh here and round into my back. So I'm really sucking my belly in. I'm rounding my shoulders, so I'm pulling my diaphragm back, one of the attachment points for the psoas, and then I could really feel the stretch. So as you do that, you're letting your center of your back press backwards and the front of your hip press forward to really feel that stretch. And one of the most important things to do, especially with this stretch, is continue breathing. So take some pretty deep breaths here, slow inhales, and slow exhales. Take one more breath in. As you exhale, rise up out of that rounded back. And we're gonna cross over towards that bent knee, turning over to face the left side. So here we can either open up one arm and use this to balance, or open up both arms. And then I like to drop this back arm back and lift this front arm up. And this just kind of gets a different angle of the stretch in the front of the hip. So take a deep breath in, again, lift out of your lower back, get long in the spine, and then as you lean back with this top arm, press the front of the hip forward. One more inhale here, get long in the spine. Exhale, press the hip forward. And then rising back up to center, bring one hand on that hip. And then we'll do a similar thing where we're just reaching this arm up and over to the side, still pressing the front of the hip forward. Deep breath in. Exhale, press the hip forward, lean over towards the left. One more inhale here, lift the front of the hip up. Get a little bit longer in your spine. Exhale, press the front hip forward. And then slowly lower down. And then switch sides, bringing your other foot forward. So same thing, knee right under the hip here and knee right above the ankle here. And bring your hands to your hips. Pull the front of the hip bones up. Pull the lower belly in. Let the tailbone reach down so you're getting strong in this thigh here. And then start to press the front of the hip forward, keeping the integrity here, keeping the strength here. And then just as we did before, bring both hands to the front of your thigh. Start to pull your belly and round your back, trying to pull the diaphragm straight backwards while you press the hip forward. Long, slow, deep breath in. Exhale, round a little bit deeper, gently pressing this hip forward. One more time, inhale. This time, open your mouth and exhale. And rising back up, crossing this opposite arm over, opening this arm up. Option is stay here or maybe open to a T, or drop this back arm towards the back thigh and lift the front arm up, pressing the hips forward still. Deep breath in. Exhale, lean into it a little bit more. Inhale, get long in the spine, stay active in the low belly. Exhale, leaning back. And then inhale here, come back to center. Bring the hand to the hip. And then start leaning over towards the right. Still pressing the front of the hip forward. Still lifting the front of the hip up as you lean over to the side. One more deep breath in. And exhale, rising back up. Bring both hands back down, step the knee back. And then we're going to switch to a high lunge. So stepping this front foot forward, get high on the ball of the back foot, and take your time to rise up to a position somewhat like this. So in theory, we would like the knee right over the ankle again, and we like to stay really high on the ball of this back foot. So same thing we were just doing in that kneeling lunge, noticing where our front of our hip bones are lying, noticing how active we are in our low belly. And I like to start this one taking a pretty deep bend in the back knee. So going from straight into a deep bend will kind of loosen up the movement of the hips here. So with the knee bent, lift the front of the hip bones up. Again, activate that lower belly. Then maybe start to bend it deeper into this front knee. And then if it's available to you, start to straighten the back leg and you really feel that stretch lengthen here. You can have your hands on your hips here to help you balance and to remind you to tilt the front of the hips up, because the stretch is really in the movement of the hips. It's not how deep I'm going into my lunge. It's really just the awareness of the lower belly and the hips here. So take a deep inhale, get long in your spine. And as you exhale, either stay here, still bending strong into that front knee, making sure your hips are square towards the front, noticing if they're opening out. Maybe reminding this left hip to pull back while you lift this front hip up. And to add on, straightening the leg if you want, maybe opening out to a T here. And if you'd like, you can drop the back arm, lift your front arm, coming into a revolved lunge. Stay really strong in that front foot. And bring your focus back to the front of this right hip here. Deep breath in, lengthen the spine, pull the lower belly in. Exhale, maybe bend deeper into the front knee. One more inhale. Exhale, coming back down. And then bring both hands to your ground, to the ground, bend into the back knee and just switch sides, however you'd like to. Again, coming high on the ball of the back foot. Deep bending this front knee, trying to guide it right over the ankle. And then hands come back to the hips. So bending deeper into the back knee so you can really lift the front of the hips up. Activate the low belly. Reach the tailbone down. And holding onto all that, bend deeper into the front knee. Remind this right hip to pull back. We're lengthening the front hip so our front of our hip bones are square. And then maybe start to straighten the back leg. Maybe bend a little bit deeper into the front knee. And either keeping your hands at your hips or to test your balance a little bit more, we can hold our arms here. Take one more inhale. You exhale, come back into the T. So one arm comes forward, twisting towards the bent knee. And either staying here or maybe dropping the hand back, coming back into that twisted lunge. Focusing on lifting the hip. Staying strong in this front knee. Take a deep breath in, lift the spine. Exhale, bend a little bit deeper. Your next inhale, rise up. And then lower back down. And coming back to your hands and knees. Taking a moment and resting if you want. And giving the front of your hips a break here. And we're going to come down to a low lunge this time. Stepping that left foot forward again. Your knee can either be on the ground back here, or you could be high in the ball of your back foot if you want to work a little bit more on strengthening that back leg. So having both hands on the ground, and either the knee lifted or resting, again remind this left hip to roll back and start to get long in the front of the right hip here. So as you inhale, get long in the rest of your spine. I know we've been working on getting long in the lower spine, but try to reach the center of your chest forward, bring your shoulder blades together behind you, and stay really active in that lower belly. So as you inhale, reach through the center of your chest, maybe inch that back foot back a little bit more, and then lower the knee back down. If you like, you can bring both hands on the inside of this foot. And checking in here, making sure the knee's staying right over the ankle rather than pressing it over, kind of overstretching the knee there. So take a long deep breath in. Keep this knee hugging in towards your shoulder. And even if you're up here, focusing this on shifting forward and bringing the attention back to the front of the right hip here. So option is stay up here on your arms if you want. If it feels good to you, you can lower down onto one elbow or to both elbows, keeping the focus on lengthening the spine and keeping this hugging in. One more long, slow, deep breath in. As you exhale, slowly rise back up, plant the hands. Keeping the right hand planted down, turning over toward this bent left knee, opening up for a twist again, letting your hips sink down. Twisting the center of your chest towards that knee, maybe even seeing if you can twist it towards the sky or the ceiling. Take another deep breath in. Exhale, let the hips sink. And then bring both hands back down. Dropping that knee down if you haven't already. Rising up back to a kneeling lunge. Option is stay here, or if you feel like it's available to you, you can bend into this back knee and grab the foot. If you'd like to, you can grab a strap or a towel and wrap it around there so your foot can be here and you're still moving in towards this pose. So this is getting even deeper into the psoas muscle and moving into your quad a little bit. So same thing, lifting the front of the hip up, lower belly active, start to shift forward like we were before, this time hugging the heel in towards the hip. Take a long, slow, deep breath in, open your mouth and exhale. One more breath in here. And exhale, release the foot. Come back to your hands and knees.